Hello, good morning. I have a tutorial for you today. This is for individuals who have purchased the Arcade2TV-XR controller and would like to use it with the VPX program. So before we get started, you're gonna need to do a few things. The first is update the firmware on your controller. The second is going to be downloading a shareware program called JoyToKey. You're going to need this because the XArcade controller is perceived as a controller by the Windows software, and you're going to want some of the inputs to be received as keyboard and mouse inputs instead. For the firmware, you're going to want to go to the XArcade website, hit customer support, click the software and firmware upgrade. So at this point you will need to download two things. The first is the updating software and the second is the actual firmware upgrade. So for the software, it's right here at the top, whatever the newest version is for you. We'll click download up here. If you've ever installed something, you know how to do this. Now you will need to look for the firmware upgrade. Perfect, I got it. Open up the Arcade2TV software. You're going to go down here into firmware upgrade and go to your downloads and find it. Alright, now that you've done that, you should now be able to get your controller into the XINPUT purple mode, which they recommend you use for pinball. So in order to get your controller into the purple pinball mode, you need to hold the player 1 mode button and on the left side of the controller, the middle button on the top row for 5 seconds. Beep, beep, and then the display will blink purple 3 times, and that'll let you know you're in purple mode. Okay, so now that we're in purple mode on the controller, there are a few things I would like to point out to you that you should know before we go farther. And that's about how the controller is interfacing with Windows. So you will see here in Windows that the game controller setting that the XArcade shows up as these two controllers. Functionally, these are close to Xbox controllers, and that's kind of how your computer will see them. So you may notice here on the schematics that some of the buttons like left bumper, right bumper, and the A are on the schematic twice, and that is because to Windows they're virtually the same button. That means if you hit the right flipper button, that also engages this central button, and there is no way to debind those in the settings. They're linked. So what that means in practice is that there are some buttons that we just won't use on the controller, like these two central buttons, because they're mapped to the triggers, as well as the up and down direction on the right joystick is mapped to the pulling of the physical plunger. So we can't map the right thumbstick up and down for anything other than pull the plunger. But the most gruesome offender on this list is the nudge. Physically nudging your controller, which is something you'd want to do if you bought the haptics kit, is tied to the left controller stick, and there is no way to unbind those inside of Windows. Alright, let's talk about JoyToKey and why we need it very briefly. JoyToKey is a shareware free program that allows the controller inputs that are being sent in to be transferred to keyboard presses, and VPX likes those slightly better in my opinion. So you're simply going to Google JoyToKey. It'll be the first website to pop up. You'll hit download, scroll till you find a download installer, grab it, install, rad. Now we simply launch JoyToKey. Alright, so before we launch JoyToKey, actually we're going to go into VPX, go to preferences, configure keys. Well, this is daunting, but I have a key for you. If you just want it up and running quickly, you can just copy what I have here. I've superimposed the VPX controls over the X-Arcade joystick, so you can just very easily copy over what you see. So boop, just click on it and press the button. Boop, boop, and do that for each of the buttons that you see labeled here, because these are the ones we will be using while on the controller. Now, a few things to note that will save you a lot of time is that VPX is emulating real pinball machines. So those machines have different ways of accepting credits to start the game. Some of them are waiting for a mechanical coin switch to trigger, and some use a newer PinMAME thing to add a credit. So you'll see I have a PinMAME coin button and then a backup add credit button for the older EM machines that need that. It's just to help with compatibility, as well as you may be wondering, hey, if you have a physical plunger, then why have a plunger button? That's because some real life pinball machines don't have a pull plunger. They have a button to launch the ball, and in some of those games, it depends on how the table is programmed. The physical pull of the plunger will not launch the ball. You need to actually press a button for that. So for compatibility, again, there's a button for you. So you can just copy this if you want it to just work. You can mess around with it later. That's VPX is all customizable. Do what you want. You might see a few of the settings I have here labeled are not on this screen. You have to go to preferences again to VR settings, because I play primarily in VR. Those will be the recenter buttons and the table up and down buttons. Those are right there. Okay, let's quickly get into the nudge settings. I'm going to give you kind of the values that work for me and are a good starting point, but you can tweak them all to be however you like. So to quickly explain max and gain. Max will be the ceiling for the craziest jolt I think you can give a machine, and gain is like a gradient of how much a tap is going to affect it. So I think in practice what that means, if you tap it a little bit with a high gain, it'll give it a bigger kind of effect. And dead zone just prevents drift. Dead zone, seriously, this is a big one. Here you can see the accelerometer and the axis right here. A slight nudge of the machine will cause this thing to violently shake, and the XRK controller, if you have it, you know it wobbles. So a little nudge and this thing is all over the place. So for that reason, I keep dead zone at a 28. I promise small taps and nudges still register, but it'll stop some of the unsettling wiggle that you'll get. Quickly, let's go down the list of things you'll want to change. We got x-axis, make that x-axis, and y, make that y, as well as hit reverse on each of these, because when you hit the table on the right side, the ball should jerk to the table should move to the left and the ball should jerk to the right. And reversing makes that how it's supposed to happen. So for X max, X gain, we're going to do 25 and 40. Y max, Y gain, go 30 and 40. Plunger, R, Y axis, dead zone 28%. This is all standard. Keep this off. Enable plunger filter. Put that on. It helps to clean up the signal a little bit that you just saw. Of course, enable analog nudge. So this is the only part of the video that might be a little in contention. It is this setting right here. Analog nudge input is velocity. It made this video take an entire extra day to come out, because I've seen on the internet people say that this setting is good, but I personally could not get it working in any meaningful way with the controller. Your personal mileage may vary, but to me, I couldn't get it to work, so I'm keeping it off. So tilt sensitivity is on a scale from 0 to 1000, I believe, 1000 being the most sensitive and 0 being nothing. So you'll want to dial this into your own personal, what you think should tilt the machine. I like it at 730, maybe 740 or around that, but your personal preference is going to be everything here. I forgot this. In your settings, the input API should be XINPUT. Alright, so we are almost done. We just need to take the controls that the purple mode of the arcade controller is sending to your PC and the keyboard controls that we have set up on VPX and connect them together with JoyToKey software. So now I have my controller plugged up into my PC and I have the JoyToKey software open. You can see it's being registered as 2 Xbox 360 controllers. That's normal. All the controls that we will be binding will be to the first one. So the JoyToKey software is going to be really helpful in this because you can press a button on your XArcade controller and it will highlight on the JoyToKey software which button you're pressing so you can remap it. So we'll start with the right flipper. I will press the right flipper on the controller so I can see which Xbox 360 button it is being perceived as by my computer. I press it and it is highlighted right there. That is the right bumper. And I see from my cheat sheet here that the right bumper is K. So I'll make right bumper the keyboard press K by double clicking and pressing K. Hit enter. Easy as that. And you should do that for each of the buttons that you see bound here on the controller. Please pause the video so you can do all that. Okay, so that should be everything you need to get up and starting with your Arcade2TV and VPX. I just have one optional step that is not required but may help. It says script change. Go to your vPinball folder, visual pinball, scripts, then scroll down till you see this nudge plugin, major acceleration and tilt. I want you to copy that script, paste it somewhere, and rename it to NudgePlugIn. And then I want you to put the copied file back into the scripts folder. This is another thing people say helps. I'm not sure if it helped me, but I think it works fine, so I'm adding it here, but it's not a required step. Alright, now we're finally finished. That should be all of the things. You should have your buttons, you should have your analog plunger and analog nudge all working. So I hope you have fun with your XArcade controller and VPX. Please leave me a like down there if you enjoyed the video. The algorithm loves it.